Wouldn't it be cool if you could have a psychedelic experience with nothing more than Wim Hof breathing techniques and some hot and cold therapy? Well, that's exactly what I experienced yesterday, and on this video, I wanted to discuss exactly how that happened so that you can go out there and create it for yourself, and then also take that energy into the next year of 2025 and make it one of the best years of your life. What's up, guys? My name is Nico Rapcliffe. I've been on my spiritual journey for over 5 years. I had a traumatic injury in the gym. I tore my pectoral tendon. The weight fell right back on my chest, and things drastically opened up for me since that point in terms of my spiritual world. And I've also been an entrepreneur for over a decade, built multiple businesses. So we always like incorporating the woo and the do, and how this is actually going to help you in your life, in your business, in your brand, all that good stuff. So let's not waste any time, and let's dive into my experience, what I got out of it, and how you can go out there and replicate it as well. So I went over to my friend's house last night. He has an infrared sauna as well as a cold plunge. So we got in the sauna for about 15 minutes. We were just chopping it up, talking a little bit of business, talking a little bit of life. It wasn't too much around any type of spiritual work. And then we jumped out, went into the cold plunge for about 2-3 minutes, and then he had to dip out. And so I ended up sticking around for a little bit longer and thinking I was just going to have a couple more back and forth exposures and didn't really think too much of it. But when I stepped back into the sauna, things started shifting. Okay, so I had not been actually practicing too much of my spiritual practice recently because I've just been a little bit scattered, to be honest with you. And I felt like this was just like the perfect timing. I'll explain why. I think that was a big reason on why I had such a psychedelic experience within the breath work, within the hot cold exposure. Okay, so what ended up happening is I went in, I scheduled it for about 15 minutes, 15 turned into 30, 30 turned into 45, and then soon enough I was in there for an hour. And so the reason that I stuck in there so long is because I just started doing some breath work. Okay, and I'll explain what that breath work was here in a second, but I started dropping in a little bit more and a little bit more and a little bit more and a little bit more. And I feel like that's one of the biggest takeaways that I got from this experience that you can take away as well, is that the whole concept of build momentum. Build momentum with your breathing practice. Build momentum with your your meditation practice. Build momentum with your yoga practice if that's something that you do. Build momentum within your business. Build momentum within building your brand. So it's this whole concept of building momentum. And so the breathwork technique that I particularly used in this instance was actually more so of a box breathing. And so I really like box breathing right now because it slows me down, right? It slows me down as opposed to that very intensive breath work where it's a lot of pushing in, a lot of pushing out, and very aggressive, if you will, and then long holds. As opposed for this box breathing, I was more so, and to be honest, I wasn't even necessarily so conscious of like 1, 2, 3, 4, and then pause, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then exhale, 1, 2, 3, 4. So if you're not familiar, box breathing is basically that. Whatever count that you want, you could even go a 2 count. 1, 2 in, and then you pause at the top, 1, 2 at the top, and then you let go, 1, 2 out, and then you pause at the bottom, 1, 2. So obviously you could increase that to 4, you could increase that to 8, you could increase that to 20, 30, whatever it is that you want to do. But what ended up happening for me, coming back to this whole concept of building momentum, that's exactly what I did. Okay, if I had to kind of guess, I wasn't counting exactly. I think there might have been a few times I was counting. I remember starting kind of at a 4 count, if you will. I wasn't like being real intentional about it, but that's kind of like the gist of it. And then it started elongating a little bit more. 4 turned into 6, 6 turned into 8, and then it just kept going in more and more. And so, as my body was warming up, because I had just been in the cold plunge, and so it took me a while to get my core warmed back up before I was sweating at all. I was probably in there for like 20, 30 minutes before things started shifting internally, and I actually started like feeling the heat. Right? But then around 30, I started like really feeling the heat. That's when the breath work started kicking in, and that's when things were starting to shift. And then as the time continued to progress, like obviously I was getting hotter and hotter, and getting to the point where I was kind of ready to get out, but I stuck in there for whatever reason. I just set the timer for an hour, and I was like, I'm going to do this. And so as the time elapsed, my breath work got more intense. My experience got more intense. And soon enough, I was doing more of the intense workouts where it was like strong pushes out, strong pulls in, strong pushes out, strong pulls out, so strong pushes out, strong pulls in. And then also I would pause, and I would have that elongated pause and breath in and then breath out. And so by the end of it, it was basically about like 2 minutes till I just decided to do a really long breath hold for about 2 minutes. And I did kind of cut it short just by a few seconds, but I did notice that I didn't quite hit it all the way. But by the end of that, that was a profound experience, just being in there with the breath work and all that kind of stuff. And I came out and, I could feel it. I could feel my body vibrating. I could just feel a sense of like, wow, this is something different. This is definitely different for sure. So that was really cool in itself. But then I was like, my core is so heated right now. This is a perfect time to go jump into the cold plunge. And so this is where things really elevated and really got even more profound, and the vibrations, the internal vibrations really kicked off. Okay. So I jumped in to the cold plunge, and I'm doing the same type of thing. Box breathing. I'm slowing things down. I'm building the momentum, 4 count-ish, 5 count, 6 count, 7, kind of starting to build it up. And before I knew it, I didn't even need to do much of the intense breathing of breathing out and breathing in and breathing out and breathing in. It was just kind of, I kept going slow, and then all of a sudden, I didn't even realize it, but all of a sudden I'm doing a breath hold. And I don't know how long I was in there, but it was, I would say probably around 5 minutes or something around that sort. And then I was just noticing, like, all of a sudden it really started hitting me. And it was just like I was looking up into my third eye, and it's kind of one of those things that can be a little challenging to actually explain and describe with words and actually communicate, but it was just one of those most profound feelings. I had one, probably like over a year ago, that was very profound as well. It was the same type of thing. I feel like I was having direct communion with God right then and there, and I feel like he was downloading into me, and it was just really, really profound. And I have to say that I stood there. I stayed in the water, in the cold plunge, for probably about like 30 seconds to maybe a minute, where I was really just tapped in. And then I was just like, whoa, like, and then all of a sudden I didn't realize that I was breathing. I was just in a breath hold, and it was just like everything compounded from, going from the hot, building all of that in the hot, doing the breath work in the hot, coming out, having, that internal vibration, jumping in the cold plunge, doing a little bit of breath work, and then just kind of like riding that momentum, doing the breath hold, and then all of a sudden, boom, it just, boom. So shortly after that, I did jump out, and it was just like one of those things where you kind of felt a little dizzy, and it was intense for sure. So that was my experience, and here's my lessons around that and how you can actually go out there and potentially duplicate this from my perspective. So one of the things that I would say is that because of the fact that I have not been as consistent with doing hot and cold therapy as well as my breathwork practice, it made a difference, because I think that anytime I take long breaks from it, that means that I'm typically a little bit more sensitive to my spiritual practice. And in this case, so if you are wanting to duplicate that and have more of a psychedelic experience with your breath work, with your hot and cold therapy, then maybe take a little bit of time to not do it for a while so that you can be a little bit more sensitive. And then you'll be more, at least in my experience, you'll be more likely to have that type of experience. So that's point number one. Point number two is, and again, I mentioned it earlier, but I really think that the whole idea around momentum is a big thing. So again, no matter if it's in your business practice, whether it's in your spiritual practice, whether it's in the gym or yoga or whatever it is, I think there's a lot of power in building momentum, because I think about it as like a locomotive. Like, it's really hard to get a locomotive to go, right? But once it's actually in motion, like, nothing can stop it, and it blasts through walls. And I think about that in life. I think that's one of the most powerful things, and that's what we teach a lot inside of our Skool Community, where we talk about all this type of stuff in terms of the woo, in terms of the do, and integrate those so that we can like really build our brands, really build our businesses, right? So it's it's a powerful concept. And I think specifically in your spiritual practice, and if you're wanting to have this type of experience, I think it's not about like, hey, how do I get this experience in 5 minutes? It's like, how do I get this experience in, an hour, 2 hours, maybe 3 hours? And that way you can go deep, and the deeper you go, the stronger the experience is going to be. So I really don't think I would have had that type of experience if I was just in the sauna for, 10, 15 minutes and then jump in the cold plunge. In fact, I didn't, right? Because I was having a conversation, and that's a whole nother aspect of it. If I was just in there for 15 minutes by myself doing my breath work and then jump into the cold plunge, I still don't think I would have had that same type of experience. So just take that concept of building momentum and letting that momentum ride and getting in there deep is really going to be beneficial. Okay, so that's point number 2. And then I would say like the last part of it is, as you build that momentum, like get more intense when you have that momentum. As I explained, my experience was I did like the slow box breathing, and then I went more intense where I did the strong out, the exhales, the strong inhales, the strong outhales, the strong inhales, and then I did the long breath holds. And that was just a common theme as I got deeper and deeper into my practice. And I think, again, as you build momentum, it's in a sense like easier to do. It's just like a gradual momentum instead of feeling like you got to hit it out of the gate. So those are my 3 things, is that if you want to have an experience like this, I would take some time off so that you can desensitize yourself to it a little bit so that you're more sensitive the next time you jump into that type of practice. 2, I would build up the momentum. And then 3, I would finish strong. I would finish with more intensity. So those are the kind of the 3 things. And then it's like, how do you incorporate this into the next year so that you can have even more profound experiences ongoing? And really, it's about deepening your practice. And I'm speaking to myself just as much as I'm speaking to anybody. But I've been very active. I've had a lot going on in terms of the business side of things and creating content, going to events and hosting events and all sorts of things in terms of building my brand, which again is a main thing that we talk about inside of our Skool community because it's a really powerful asset, and it's actually one of the greatest spiritual journeys that I've ever been on of actually building out my authentic personal brand, right? But how do we find that balance? Well, that's the whole concept of the woo and the do. But make sure and implement a strong spiritual practice where you're getting that on a consistent basis. So I am going to definitely take more of an approach of how do I stay consistent with these type of practices. Yes, it'll be great every once in a while when I take a little bit more of a longer period so I'm a little bit more sensitive, because then when I come in, I'll be able to have a more profound experience. But I would rather have more consistent experiences that aren't as intense as opposed to just having a couple really intense ones throughout the year. I just like to have that practice. Right? And so think about that, especially during these holidays. And this is what I'm going to do personally, is I'm going to take the whole week off and just focus a little bit more on my spiritual, focus on my family, all that kind of stuff. So then I can hit it hard, because I think, one of the best quotes that I've ever heard is that when you're tired, rest. Okay. When you're tired, rest. And so I do feel that, and I do feel a little fatigued at this point of the year. So I'm going to rest. And again, think about it from like, go slow to go fast is another cool quote. Is like, the more that you slow down, it actually like recharges your battery, and then once your battery's full, then you can hit it hard, as opposed to just like always running on like 25% battery, right? You're going to be so much better if you have 100% battery, even if it takes you like a week or 2 to get back to 100% battery. So I'd strongly recommend that. We're obviously going to go deeper into this type of stuff inside of our free Skool community, Authentic Influence. So we'd love to have you in there if you think that you can hang and you can have fun with us, and you're really wanting to build out your authentic personal brand so that you can manifest more premium clients, meaningful relationships, speaking opportunities, just be a part of an amazing community of awesome entrepreneurs changing the world and making a lot of impact with that. Okay, so links are down below. We also have a video that walks you through the 3 steps on how to really build out the woo and do process so that you can build out your brand. So that's really all I got for you guys. I appreciate you watching. Go out there, crush it. Go out there and try this out if this resonated with you. And let me know if you have any questions down in the comments. I appreciate you guys. Subscribe to the YouTube channel, and we'll see you next time.